Buongiorno tutti quanti, benvenuti a lezione 22 di Italian for Beginners. Oggi discutiamo di 4 verbi irregolari molto importanti: dare, stare, andare e fare. Vedrete questi verbi dappertutto, allora bisogna impararne le coniugazioni a memoria. Discuteremo anche di qualche espressione idiomatica che usi questi verbi. Cominciamo con il piccolo brano in mezzo a pagina 68 sotto il titolo. Ve lo leggerò e poi sottolineerò le forme di dare, stare, andare e fare. Dopo parleremo dell'uso e delle coniugazioni di questi verbi. Ricordatevi che, come al solito, c'è anche la traduzione del brano in fondo alla pagina. Ecco il mio segreto per studiare con successo. Vado sempre a lezione, sto molto attento in classe, faccio sempre tutti i compiti e quando do gli esami non ho mai problemi. So here are the verbs that we're going to be talking about. Not all of them look at all like andare, dare, stare, etc. So we'll be talking about which of these forms correspond to which verb and how. Now, so we'll start with dare and stare. Dare is to give, and stare is to stay. Sometimes it has the sense of to be, but essere is more common for that. So stare, it's again one of those words that doesn't really neatly translate to English, and you'll just have to kind of follow the lessons and observe how it's used to get a feel for when you use essere and when you use stare. For now, it's good to know that stare is what's used when you say come stai or come sta, and then you answer sto bene or sto male. So dare first, though. These are the forms of dare. I've highlighted the irregular forms in red, so you can see it's only the second person singular and the third person singular and plural that are actually irregular for this verb. So it can sometimes be helpful to memorize these by the exceptions more than just memorizing the entire conjugation, but it's whatever works best for you. Stare. Now, stare has even fewer irregular forms. It actually only has 2 forms that are irregular: the second person singular for tu and the third person plural or second person plural formal, loro. So let's talk a little bit about some idiomatic expressions that use dare and stare. Most of them use stare, but there is a dare one. There are additional expressions that use dare, but they weren't ones that are likely to become important for you soon, so I didn't include them. So dare un esame means to take an exam. That one can be a little bit counterintuitive because it sounds like it means to give an exam like the teacher, but it actually means to take one. So diamo gli scritti questa settimana means we're taking the written exams this week. Stare attento is to pay attention or to be careful. One thing to know about this is that attento in this case is an adjective, and so it does agree in gender and number with whoever is paying attention. So è importante stare attenti in classe. This means it's important to pay attention in class, and we'll get to why attenti is masculine plural in this case later in the course. But for now, just remember that attento in this expression does agree in gender and number with the person who's with the subject of stare. Stare bene o male, we've talked about this before. Stai bene oggi? Are you doing well today? Stai bene that question also means are you okay? Kind of, I've heard that used to mean are you okay? Stare zitto, to be quiet. And again, this is going to agree in gender and number with the subject of stare. So the example would be sta zitta Sara, il professore sta parlando. Be quiet, Sarah, the professor is talking. And this sta parlando we'll talk about in a slide or two as well. Stare in piedi is to be standing up or to be on one's feet, as in l'insegnante sta tutto il giorno in piedi. The teacher is on his feet all day. So I want to go back to this sta parlando that we saw on the previous slide to take a brief detour into the present continuous tense. So in the lesson on the simple present tense, I said that Italian has one present tense that covers the three English tenses that we commonly use. The simple present, such as I go. The present continuous or progressive tense, I am going, or the present emphatic tense, I do go. So Italian generally does use the simple present tense to cover all three of those, but it also does have a present continuous tense, and that uses stare and refers to actions that are happening in this moment. So in Italian you would never say I'm going to school this semester. It would be I go to school this semester. I'm going to class right now. That kind of thing. A common question that you'll hear is cosa stai facendo? And that means what are you doing right now? Keep in mind that the simple present tense can also have this sense. So the present continuous tenses we're going to talk about in more detail in capitolo 15, but for now know that any question that's asked with stai facendo, cosa stai facendo, you can answer it with the simple present tense and will at the very least be understood, and it won't really be wrong either. Fare, to do. So here are the irregular forms of fare. Fare is a little bit more irregular. Io faccio, tu fai, noi facciamo, loro fanno. So those are the irregular forms. Yeah, like I think I said before, you really just have to memorize irregular forms of verbs because the whole point of them is that they don't follow a pattern. That's why they're irregular. So there's not really much to say about these charts, but just that these are the forms to memorize. There are many, many, many idiomatic expressions with fare. Fare is a verb that gets used a lot in Italian. It gets a lot more use than to do does in English, probably even. So here are a few things. Fare colazione or fare pranzo, to have breakfast or lunch, as in faccio colazione alle 8 ogni mattina. I have breakfast at 8 every morning. Fare una domanda, to ask a question, as in Luigi fa sempre troppe domande in classe. Luigi always asks too many questions in class. Fare una fotografia or fare una foto is to take a picture. Facciamo una foto davanti alla Torre Eiffel. Che tempo fa means what's the weather like. Fare is used a lot to discuss weather. So Che tempo fa? What's the weather like? And the response could be fa bello, fa brutto, fa caldo, fa freddo, or fa fresco, among other things. So those are really common expressions that you'll hear with reference to the weather. Andare, to go. This is another really important one, with quite a number of irregular forms. And these, you can see, have nothing to do with the stem of the verb. So they do have to do with Latin roots. So if you took Latin in school, you may find some of this familiar. There are also several idiomatic expressions with andare. The few that I thought of, these aren't in the book, but I knew there were some, so I wanted to include a few. Andare d'accordo means to get along. Keep in mind, in this case, accordo is a noun, and it doesn't agree in gender and number with anything. So it's always accordo, not accordi or whatever. Laura e io non andiamo sempre d'accordo. Laura and I don't always get along. Andare bene o male is to go well or badly, just like we say in English. Gli orali vanno bene finora means the oral exams are going well so far. And then another common one that you'll hear is va bene, which means okay or it's okay. This can be used to mean okay in general. It can mean okay to reassure somebody that they haven't done something wrong. Okay or it's okay, va bene. So I want to go into the preposition use with andare, because andare is a verb that usually gets used with prepositions, like you go to somewhere, you go from somewhere, you go somewhere in a mode of transportation. So one thing that we do in English that doesn't work exactly the same in Italian is that we say, I'm going to do such and such, and that means we're going to do it in the future. You can use andare and a, the preposition a, to say that you're going to do something, but that means in Italian that you're physically going to go somewhere and do something. It does not mean you're going to do something in the future. So you would never say, like, I'm going to eat lunch later, if you're going to do it at home. It's always physically going somewhere to do something. So the example I give for this is vado a studiare in Italia. I'm going to study in Italy. Pretty straightforward. Andare plus a plus infinitive means you're going somewhere to do something. To say a mode of transportation, most of the time you're going to use andare with the preposition in. So you could say vado in ufficio in autobus. I'm going to the office on the bus. Notice that this is a case where we don't use the same preposition in Italian and English. So in you think of as meaning in, but in this case it means on. Vado in ufficio in autobus, on the bus. Andiamo in Italia in aereo. Same thing. We're going to Italy on an airplane. The one major exception to this is when you're going on foot or walking somewhere. You want to use andare a piedi. As we talked about in the section on stare in piedi means to be standing up or to be on one's feet. Andare a piedi means to walk or to go on foot. So that's an annoying exception to keep track of, and it took me a really long time to memorize the difference. So here's another one. When you're talking about going to a state or a country, you use the preposition in. Vado in Italia l'estate prossima. I'm going to Italy next summer. So again, in this case, in means to. Andiamo a sciare in Colorado. We're going to go skiing in Colorado. Notice again that we have this andiamo a sciare, the andare plus a plus infinitive to mean what you're going to do while you're there. When you're talking about going to a city, or generally speaking also an island or islands that aren't their own country or state, you use a. So andiamo a Seattle a vedere il Space Needle. Andiamo a Seattle because Seattle is a city. Quando vai a Bali? A Bali because Bali is an island and it's part of Indonesia, so it's not its own country. If it was, we would use in like we do with other countries. So here are some other common places that you might go. The difficult thing about andare and also tornare, which we discussed in the previous lesson and uses prepositions similarly, there's kind of a different preposition with wherever you're trying to go, and a lot of the common ones you just have to memorize. So here are a few. Andare al lavoro, andare in ufficio. So al lavoro is to work, in ufficio is to the office, so kind of the same thing. Andare all'università, andare a scuola, to school. School in Italian meaning only primary school. Secondary school is il liceo and university is l'università. Andare a colazione, pranzo, cena. Again, this generally has the sense of going somewhere to eat breakfast or lunch or dinner, because it would just be fare colazione if it was just having it. Andare a lezione, andare alla classe o andare in classe. I've heard both, and I've had Italians disagree about which one is actually correct. I've had different Italians tell me they strongly felt that one of these was correct, but their accounts conflicted. So I've heard both. Andare a casa, to go home, that's a really important one. And andare a casa is used no matter where you live. If you live in an apartment or whatever, that's still a casa. Andare da qualcuno is another really important one. So andare da un amico means to go to a friend's place. Andare dal medico means to go to the doctor. So when you say andare da, that actually usually means to go to somewhere. So that's just yet another case where prepositions don't translate literally, and da means to in this expression. So as I said, the verb tornare, meaning to go back, usually uses prepositions approximately the same as with andare. So tornare in ufficio, to go back to the office. Tornare a casa, to go back home. Tornare in Italia, tornare a Bali, tornare in autobus, whatever. So that's just another reason why it's really important to memorize the prepositions that go with andare, and just kind of review those phrases as much as you can. Allora, I compiti. Do the exercises on pagina 70. This is in the new book, so page 70. And then you can read the the part on l'Italia regionale on page 71. That's about Umbria in this chapter. Yeah, and then the next lesson we'll be talking about possessives, using possessives in Italian, and the usage of articles with possessive adjectives, because that's a little different in Italian and English. So we're going to be talking about how to say, like, my car, her class, like whatever, people's stuff. So that's going to be the next lesson. I hope you found this lesson useful, and if you have, please subscribe to my channel. As usual, if you have questions, please leave them in the comments, and corrections from native Italian speakers are always welcome in the comments as well. Yeah, so please subscribe to my channel so you don't miss the next video, and I will see you in Lezione 23.